All right, so Giants, Vikings, um, Jesus. That was as
I,
bad
I
of a
think
performance
I think
as you could
Jesus is all you need to say.
possibly. I mean, let's just say this, okay? I don't like to react to one game because usually the first game of the season is a lot of things. It's a long season. We know this. We know all the old adages and whatever. But you could just tell with the eye test sometimes the way a team looks. The Vikings are not considered to be a playoff team. They are a mediocre, probably around 500 team, maybe a little under 500 type of team. Their defense is average. They're playing with their backup quarterback. They are not a great team, and they're in your building in week one. And the Giants put on about as pathetic a performance. They, aside from the Carolina Panthers, who are a borderline not USFL team, okay? They're a borderline. The Carolina Panthers are a borderline Arena League football team. Aside from the Carolina Panthers, the Giants had about as bad of a performance as any team in the football this week. And if you're waiting and you're looking at this team and you're looking at what Shane's done in the last couple of years since Gettleman left, you're looking at trying to see what Daniel Jones looks like. You're looking to see all the additions they made with Burns, with Neighbors, with all the guys they brought in, the corners that they drafted, all these guys they brought in, the safety Tyler Nubin. To see that type of performance when you're supposed to have an upgrade in talent, they look the same as last year, if not worse. The offensive line looked putrid, and they brought in 2 new offensive linemen. Nothing looked different there. Jones looks as bad as ever, and I don't even know. Let's be real, because we were very high on Dable for year one. He looks as clueless as any coach in the league now. And this is getting to the point. I was giving him the benefit of the doubt of last year. I said, you know what? Scratch it. He had 4 quarterbacks he played with last year. You got to wash it away. But the truth is that performance, that the way they were ready to play that game was as bad as any team I've seen that is in terms of preparation, and that's on the head coach. And I'm not seeing anything from Dable from an offensive standpoint. You have Neighbors now. You have Wan'Dale Robinson, who's a solid slot guy. Supposedly Hyatt played like 4 snaps in this game for some reason. You're supposed to have some weapons on the offense now, and I'm not seeing anything creative. I'm not seeing them get anyone into space, anyone the ball in certain areas. That was about as bad of a coaching performance and playing performance as I've ever seen in week one from the Giants. And I say I've ever seen, and I watched last year against the Cowboys. That's how bad this was. Because last year, week one against the Cowboys, you knew the Cowboys were a really good team and they were going to be a playoff team. This Vikings team is not that. And you got almost as embarrassed as you did last year. How pathetic did you feel it was?
I thought it was completely pathetic. I thought the offense looked completely lifeless. And I agree. I gave Dable the benefit of the doubt last year. He had 4 quarterbacks. The play calling was like weirdly conservative. They didn't even try to move the ball down the field that much. They're supposed to have an upgrade in talent in their weapons. They have Malik Neighbors. They have Theo Johnson now. Wan'Dale Robinson's healthy. Like, they're supposed to have some talent in the skill position group, and they just didn't even try to get any of those guys involved in the offense in an explosive way. Slayton. And I'm going to say this right now, and I said this to you during the game. They need to bench Daniel Jones. I know listen. I know you say that who cares? It's Drew Lock. Like, you can't go through another lifeless season, and you have young players on the offensive side of the ball who need to actually play with a quarterback who can get them the ball.
Yes, I understand.
You can't go through another lifeless season. Daniel Jones, they already know. They tried to get rid of him last offseason. They already know they're not going to keep him after this year. It's useless to play him. I can see them maybe giving him one more week. If it's another lifeless performance like this, you gotta start Drew Lock. He can at least get the ball to the receivers. And Dable is trying to keep his job.
Kenny?
He was not bad in Seattle last year. He played well for Seattle last year.
Here's the deal. You can't, as much as I think the Daniel Jones experiment has ended, and as much as I know they need to move on, and the Giants know this, you saw in Hard Knocks, you saw all offseason, they did as much as they could to bury Daniel Jones as they could, okay? They tried to bury him every which way.
He wouldn't be on the team right now.
Yeah, they don't want him on the team. You know they don't want him on the team, but that doesn't matter. I don't care how bad he is, okay? Drew Lock is not the long-term answer. You know
neither
that.
Is Daniel Jones.
It doesn't matter. You have to at least play him at the beginning of this year. You have to give him at least 6-7 weeks.
Justin, why do you have to do that?
Because
what has he done to warrant 6 to 7 weeks?
Because you're paying him $40 million. Who
cares?
It matters. You're paying him $40 million. Yes, it does. And if you don't leave this season knowing, okay, Daniel Jones is horrendous and we're moving on, that's fine. If that's the conclusion you come to, it does. But you can't say that after one game this year. You can't.
Justin.
He's been hurt a lot. He played a few games last year. I'm not a Daniel Jones fan. I think Daniel Jones is cooked. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that not only was I think he had some talent, but when you play behind bad offensive lines and for bad coaches for years, you just get shell-shocked. And I just think whatever talent he had, he doesn't have any confidence anymore, and he can't do anything offensively. So his wherewithal is done. It's kind of like what you saw with certain quarterbacks with teams. You could even say with, Zach Wilson is obviously probably just bad, but you saw with the Jets, he had no confidence. They had no offensive line. There was no way to succeed. However, I don't care if he's really bad. Drew Lock, is not the answer. You need to at least give him multiple weeks so there's no question whatsoever that he's not the answer, and you could cut bait with him after this year. There is no reason playing Drew Lock. It's pointless.
Justin, if you don't know right now, if you didn't know before this season, but especially right now that Daniel Jones is not the answer, then I don't know where. Are you blind?
I know, but
are they blind? Because they're not blind.
Doubt.
I watched Hard Knocks. They were trying to get rid of that guy.
I understand.
Right?
I know that.
He's not the answer.
I know that, but you have to leave zero doubt.
There is no doubt. There's no doubt.
Everyone
he was terrible
believes
last year. Their third string quarterback was better than him last year.
I agree. I think you saw last year. I think you saw last year that when Tyrod Taylor was in there, the offense looked competent. When Jones was in there, the offense looked like a high school team. When Jones was in there, the offense looked like a high school team.
Can I tell you one last thing? Can I tell you one last thing? They can cut bait with him after this year and not have to pay him at all. If he gets hurt this year, they're on the hook for his next year guaranteed. So that's another reason why they should not play him for What happened? No. They should not play him for 6 to 7 weeks. If he gets hurt, God forbid, they have to pay him next year. If he doesn't get hurt, they can cut him next year.
I'd have to go look at that. I don't know what the whole.
They have an out after this year for $0.
I know they have an out after this year. I know
if he gets hurt, he has an injury guarantee for next year.
Yeah, well, that's bad, obviously. I got to look up what that exactly is. But the truth is this. Listen,
I'm telling you what it is.
I agree with you.
I looked it up.
I'm not saying to not bench him at some point if it keeps going like this. But you have to at least give him a few weeks. He's coming off a torn ACL. He's coming off an offseason where all he did was rehab. So, this is not going to be his best performance. Now, listen, he looked god-awful today. He looked like he didn't even belong in the NFL. Okay? Let's just call it like it is. He was atrocious. The worst quarterback of the week award either goes to him or Deshaun Watson. Those are only two options.
Bryce Young.
Bryce Young has literally no weapons there, has no offensive line. I can't kill him, and he's in his second year as a quarterback. Deshaun Watson's a veteran quarterback, and at this point, Daniel Jones is a veteran quarterback. The worst quarterback of the week award and the worst quarterback in the league award goes to either Deshaun Watson or Daniel Jones, if not both. You can vote on whoever you want. They both stink. However, you have to give him at least a few weeks to make sure that there's nothing there, because there's no reason to play Drew Lock. He is not your future. And if you end up being really bad because of Daniel Jones, that's okay too, because then you're going to have a high draft pick next year when maybe you could actually have a high enough draft pick to get the quarterback of the future that they should have gotten last year when when Tommy DeVito won those two horribly losable games to the Patriots and the Commanders that they shouldn't have lost. They would have been able to get their quarterback this year. So they need to do that this offseason. Play Daniel Jones. If he sucks,
there's no way that Drew Lock is going to make them have a good enough record to get out of the top 10.
But he might be competent as Tyrod Taylor was competent enough. Tyrod
Taylor is like a real quarterback.
No, he's one of the best backups in the league, but Drew Lock might be competent enough to where he wins them 6 games instead of 3, and that could be the difference between you can't play 5 games instead of 3.
You cannot do this every week. This is not good for the team.
I'm not
you
saying
would rather win a few more games than do this. You cannot.
Well, this is what they did last year. You won a few more games last year, and you brought Daniel Jones back because of it. That's what happened last year. You got Daniel Jones back because you won a few more games.
Justin, they did not do that last year. Daniel Jones got hurt, and they played their third string quarterback, and they accidentally won 2 games. It's not the same thing.
You won a few more games last year. That's why you have Daniel Jones back this year.
They accidentally won games last year.
Do you want a new quarterback next year, yes or no?
Yes, they're going to have a new quarterback
next year. You've got to play Daniel Jones. If he stinks, and that's what everyone thinks, and if he actually does stink, who cares? You get the high draft pick. You get your quarterback. There needs to be no stone unturned. There needs to be no questions left being unanswered. He needs to play at least for 5+ weeks. If he stinks for 5 weeks, then you forget it.
If you still have questions, I don't know what the hell you've been watching.
Here's my answer.
That's all I got to say.
Okay, here's my answer. When's the Giants bye week? When's the Giants bye week this year?
I think it's like week 7 or 8.
Okay, here's my answer to you. Daniel Jones will have the job until the bye week. And if he stinks by the bye week, they'll bench him in the bye week. That's always what these teams do.
You want to make predictions right now? And we can
let's make a bet.
Back to it.
Let's make a bet. Let's do a bet on the show. What's the bet on the show we're doing? Let's do a little bet. If Jones is benched before the bye week, you
No,
win the bet.
listen.
Hold
Yeah.
on.
Okay.
If Jones is benched before the bye week, you win the bet. If Jones is benched after the bye week or not benched, then I win the bet.
Okay. And
Fair?
what's the bet?
Let's figure out what do we want the bet. The bet is this. If Jones is benched before the bye week, okay, I will walk around New York City for an entire day wearing a Daniel Jones jersey. Okay? If he's benched,
what does that do for me?
fine, we have to find what's the bet is this, okay? So we'll get a Daniel Jones jersey because this is going to be the bet. We'll get a Daniel Jones jersey. If he's benched after the bye or not benched, okay, you have to take your wife out to dinner in a Daniel Jones jersey. Okay? And if he's benched before the bye, then I have to record a music video in a Daniel Jones jersey. How's that?
Yeah, that's worse for me.
How is it worse for you? You have to go out for you just have to go out to dinner with your wife.
I have to go to a restaurant in a Daniel Jones
I don't
jersey.
care.
Listen,
you can take her wherever you want.
I still have some pride left, all right?
You can take her. It doesn't matter. That's this bet. You can take her wherever you want. It doesn't have to be a high class. You can take her wherever you want. You have to wear Daniel Jones. You have to wear the Daniel Jones jersey to the restaurant if he's not benched till after the bye week. And
listen. The bet is whoever, if he's benched before the bye week, I do that. If he's benched after the bye week, you do that. You take Crystal to dinner wearing a Daniel Jones jersey.
Fine. If he's benched before the bye week, then I take Crystal. If he's benched before the bye week, I take my girlfriend to dinner in a Daniel Jones jersey. If he's benched after the bye week or not benched, you take your wife to dinner in a Daniel Jones jersey. That's the bet. Handshake right here. We got it right here on the show.
I think you said it the other way around, but yes.
No, that was the way he said.
Yeah.
So with that
and
said,
for the record, I think if he's bad next week, they're going to bench him.
No chance they're benching him after 2 weeks. They're not benching him after 2 weeks. And by the way, if we just as a disclaimer for the bet, injuries don't count.
Obviously.
Okay.
No, bench. So, like a conscious decision that they put him on the bench.
Right. Because because of his performance. That's it.
Right.
Not because of injury. Okay.
Right.
So,
obviously.
So listen, that was as bad a performance. Daniel Jones, we talked about him. How long do you give Brian Daboll as the coach this year? Is there a chance that Daboll gets fired in season this year?
I think they would have to be really, really bad.
Like
the
what's
Giants
really bad?
Don't, like 0-7, honestly.
So you think he could get fired in season if they were?
Yeah, I think it's unlikely because the Giants usually don't like change like that.
They don't,
especially in season change. I mean, Joe Judge got like 3 years, and he was the worst coach I've ever seen in any sport in my entire life. So I don't think he really is at risk of that unless it's so pathetic and things are so off the rails that like they just need to change.
What's
I think it would have to be like 0-7 with like a bunch of embarrassing performances, or 0-6.
You're saying, but you could see it by middle of the season.
Yeah, I think it would be another like bye week thing to have the new head coach come in, whoever they.
Okay, let me ask you this question right now. Okay, let me ask you this question right now. Rank them in order of most likely to return next year, as into least likely to return next year. Okay, with Jones, Joe Shane, Brian Daboll, those three. I want in order most likely to return, least likely to return.
Joe Shane is number one, most likely to return. I think there's no chance they're getting rid of him. I think they're going to let him fire a head coach and hire a new one before he would get fired.
Joe Shane number one. Who's number two?
Daboll's number two. I think, depending on how this season plays out and how embarrassing it is, I think he might have a shot for another year. It's not looking good for him right now, but I think he is still number two.
So
Jones, I think is gone. I think Jones is 100% or 99% gone unless he gets hurt. We have to guarantee him his contract next year.
Yeah, I would.
If he doesn't get hurt, I think he's not even close. There's no chance in America that he's coming back.
I would agree with that. I think it goes Shane, Daboll, Jones. I actually think there's a good chance that both Jones and Daboll are both gone after this year. That's my prediction. My hot take right now, both Jones and Daboll are not here next year.
I don't think that's very hot. I think that's a pretty.
And you know who the coach is next year? Bill Belichick.
God, I honestly, I would rather literally any other person on the planet outside of Joe Judge to be the head coach of the New York Giants next year than Bill Belichick.
You're going to have a new quarterback and a new coach this year. That's how bad this loss was today, that we're even talking about this. That's how bad this loss was. Okay,
Bill Belichick would be the worst hire ever for a rookie quarterback. Ever.
I mean, it depends who the offensive coordinator is.
Yeah, it does not matter.
What happens if you brought in a great offensive coordinator and a good young offensive coordinator? I think it depends who the offensive coordinator is.
A horrendous hire.
Listen, who cares? Point is, the Giants stink. We talked about that.
Well, let's
go on.
move on to the other potential head coach landing spot for Bill Belichick, and that's the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, so let's talk about the Cowboys real quick, because you know what's funny about the Cowboys, because McCarthy's going to do what he does every year, what their coaches always do, which is play well enough, coach the team well enough in the regular season where there's no chance they could get fired, but they're not. But they're gonna be a playoff team, but they're not going to win big. So we know that's going to happen. But the Cowboys today, they obviously re-signed Dak, which I don't care what anyone says, they had to do.
Had to.
I don't care. You know, everyone wants to say, "Oh, Dak's not a great quarterback" and all this stuff. Listen, is he a top 5 quarterback? No. Is he borderline top 10 quarterback? He's borderline top 10.
Dak Prescott is one of those quarterbacks that is good enough to win with if you have a good enough team.
Right, and the Cowboys have had
a good enough team,
and he hasn't come up big in the playoffs. But when you have a quarterback that can get you to the playoffs every single year, practically, which is what he's done, you can't let a guy like that just walk out the door because it's so hard. You see it with the Giants, you see it with all these other teams. It's so hard to get a franchise quarterback that can get you to the playoffs year after year, that's capable of winning 10+ games a year, which is what Dak does. So the fact that he does that, you can't get rid of him. I don't care what you have to pay him. I don't care what you have to give him out, what kind of size bag, and he got the big bag. He got the super big bag.
Biggest contract in NFL
richest
history.
Contract ever. I don't care what contract. You had to pay him. Now, listen, today's game, I don't know what to make of the Browns because their defense is good. I still think their defense is good, but their offense is so pitifully bad behind Deshaun Watson. And what he's become, he's the Daniel Jones of the AFC. What they are so pitifully bad behind me, it's hard to envision what the team is because he is the Daniel Jones of the AFC. You can't win when you have no offense and no quarterback, no matter how good your defense is. And Myles Garrett's a stud. Denzel Ward's a really good player. They have good players, but you can't win when your offense is not, when they're not even there. When your offense is non-existent, you can't win. So talk about the Cowboys win. Were you impressed with the Cowboys today?
I think the Cowboys looked like the Cowboys. I mean, this is what they look like in the regular season. I think the Browns were offensively, especially, just
let's ask this. Was that more bad Browns or good Cowboys?
I think it was more bad Browns. I mean, the Cowboys look good. I mean, they look fine. Like, Dak looks solid. CD looks solid. They're running. Zeke looked like he might have gone to Germany and gotten the blood spitting procedure or whatever the hell Kobe did.
Happened?
I don't know. It looks like it. I mean, he looked more explosive than he has in like 10 years.
I thought he looked okay last year. They just had a bad O-line in New England. I don't think he was bad last year. I don't think
he looks rejuvenated, honestly. He looks like he looks happy to be back.
Their offense looked good early on, and they removed the ball the first couple of possessions. The second half, their offense didn't really do anything. They didn't really move the ball at all.
They were up big. I think they were just like bleeding clock. I don't
once they got it's true. Once they got the punt return, that was
I mean, listen, like Deshaun Watson, and this might be another case of a player missing a year in his prime and it completely throwing off their career, like Le'Veon Bell and like other guys who have missed multiple games in a year. Like, he looks like he doesn't even know how to play the position.
You know what I think it is?
What?
I think it's a classic case of public humiliation / karma being the end of your career. We've seen it so much with different players, even great players over life. And I'm going to go back as far as Tiger Woods, by the way. Tiger Woods obviously now kind of vitalized and rehabilitated his image and over the years. But if you remember, obviously, what happened with his wife when his wife hit the van with the golf club, and then he started getting injured. He started playing terribly.
But he started losing. Win the Masters after that, though.
Yeah, but he won 12 years later. I mean,
listen, he still won.
He revitalized his image and he did some things and he re-karma'd himself. He got the karma back on his side. But when you are publicly humiliated like that, that invincibility that you had, that confidence that you had inside, it's gone. And once you're not playing with that confidence, and Tiger Woods is one of the greatest athletes of all time. Deshaun Watson is a good quarterback. He was not Tiger Woods, okay? Yeah. Tiger Woods is on the Michael Jordan, LeBron James, like that type of level.
Yes.
If Tiger Woods completely fall off a cliff for years, then Deshaun Watson can do that. And we've seen it with guys like that. And there was one other guy in the top of my head, and I forgot who it was, who fell in this category as well, who had a criminal situation that was like publicly humiliating like that, and he fell off a cliff as well. But to me, this is the Tiger Woods syndrome, and it's happening to Deshaun Watson now. The whole massage thing was completely embarrassing. It was probably, we don't know. We have no idea what really happened there. It didn't look good. We still don't have the answers, but he was probably humiliated. He obviously then didn't play on top of it, so his confidence is shot. He's still not himself, and him as Deshaun Watson on the Texans, he no longer exists. So whatever this player is right now is an impersonation, and I don't know if you're ever going to see the real Deshaun Watson again that you saw in Houston. I think it's because of that.
I've been waiting for it. It's a combination of All he does is drop back, hold the ball for 10 seconds, then either scramble and throw a pick or scramble for like 2 yards and get pushed out of bounds. I can't even remember. Like, he barely even threw the ball down the field in this game.
Is the Deshaun Watson contract the worst contract in NFL history?
I mean, it's competing with Daniel Jones.
No, but Daniel Jones you can get out of next year.
I know,
So
but
it's
the
not,
premise of the Daniel Jones contract is so bad.
Watson has like a $60, $70 million cap hit for 2 years in a row more.
He got $230 million guaranteed.
I know.
For no reason. They didn't have to do that.
Tell me a worse contract of all time than that.
No, that is definitely the worst contract of all time.
Like, and Deshaun Watson, if you watch the game today, the Cowboys had pressure early on. He didn't have a lot of time, and I know they're playing with their third and fourth string tackles, and that's fine. The second half of that game, the Cowboys were not getting the same type of pressure. He had plenty of time to make a decision. Then once he held the ball for 6-7 seconds, then they would sack him or strip him. You can't let any pass rush to get that much time. He takes way too much time to make a decision. When he finally does make a decision, it's a bad one or it's just completely overthrown. Or, the best pass he had all day was on Twitter. The joke was the best pass he had all day was the pass that he tried to throw to Amari Cooper down the sideline and hit CeeDee Lamb out of bounds in stride. that was on Twitter. They said that was the best pass he threw all day. It was a dime to CeeDee Lamb. So the issue is, you saw it. The biggest thing to me was they had a fourth down. I think they were down 17 at this point. It was a fourth down, 4th and 4, 4th and 6 on their own 45. He holds the ball for 6 or 7 seconds. He rolls out. He takes a sack. How are you taking a sack on 4th and 5? Who cares if you throw a pick? Just throw it into coverage. If they pick it off, you're not losing anything anyway. You're losing the ball there.
He's afraid of his own shadow, is what he is. And honestly,
It's insane when you watch him compared to when you watched him early on in his career, and that's why, like I said, karma.
He's afraid of his own shadow.
Comes back.
He's afraid of his own shadow,
and all that stuff happens.
I think all you really need to know is last year when he got hurt and they signed Joe Flacco off of his couch, a 45-year-old Joe Flacco.
And how much better were they with Joe Flacco?
They ripped off a number of runs. They went to the playoffs. Flacco looked rejuvenated. Their offense looked great. That's all you need to know.
Flacco looked like Tom Brady compared to him.
Literally, like Flacco was fucking hitting people all over the place. Like I think that's all you really need to know. That's all you need to look at is that circumstance last year. And this year it looks more of the same. They got blown out at home against the Cowboys. The Browns have enough talent on both sides of the ball where they should play the Cowboys closely and possibly even win that game at home.
I agree with you.
They should be getting blown out at home against the Cowboys.
And listen, you could argue the Cowboys have less talent this year than they had last year. This is a Cowboys team that's coming in without Tyron Smith from last year, their best offensive lineman, without their center from last year. They completely redid the offensive line to begin with. And then on top of that, they just got CeeDee Lamb back, who didn't even practice. It wasn't even in training camp, so he hasn't had that many reps in. Ferguson got hurt in the beginning of the second half. Cooks was out of the game for a little bit. They don't have a running back this year. They lost Pollard. They're playing, Ezekiel Elliott's, dead corpse out there with Rico Dowdle. So the Cowboys offense should not be moving through you like a hot knife through butter. And then, like you said, their defense, they're playing without Deron Bland, their second best corner probably. They're playing with different linebackers this year. Their pass rush is really good. But like you said, you should be playing that game tight. You're at home against the Cowboys, who one would argue have less talent than they did last year. And the Cowboys are a good team. They're going to be a playoff team. But you should not be getting blown out at home by the Cowboys, period.
No, I agree. And you can argue the Browns now have worse talent on the offensive side, especially because they got rid of Joe Flacco and now they have Deshaun Watson back.
Listen, we always say this all the time, right? If you don't have a quarterback, you don't have a team.
Yep.
That's all there is to it. You see it with every team out there. If you don't have a quarterback, you don't have a team. Period.
All you need.
Doesn't matter how much talent you have around the ball.
The Browns proved this last year. All you need to make the playoffs is a guy who could get the ball to the receivers and not turn the ball over a million times.
Yeah, not turn the ball over. Yeah, and get the ball, all of these guys out. Make the throws.
Like Daniel Jones, I saw, and to go back to Daniel Jones for 1 second, because the tweet I sent you of the defensive lineman of the Vikings who had the pick six, when he said, I knew exactly what they were going to throw, and he threw the ball right to me. Did you see that?
Yeah, I saw it. Yeah.
I mean, that just epitomizes the entire game for Daniel Jones.
So do you look at, were you more impressed with the Eagles or the Cowboys this week from an NFC standpoint?
I didn't really. I mean, it's hard like in a overseas opening game on that surface looked terrible. Like, honestly, I was more impressed with the Cowboys. I didn't think the Eagles offensively looked that good. I think they had spurts of looking good, but I'm still waiting for 2 years ago or the beginning of last year's Eagles that were just offensively like scoring on every possession and moving the ball down the field in every possession. Barkley looked great, obviously. Hurts still doesn't look like he's back to that like 2 years ago.
Do the Giants look like a horse's ass for not re-signing Barkley or no?
No. It would have been a mistake to re-sign him. You can't pay listen, they have them having Motor Singletary instead of Saquon Barkley is the least of their issues. Let's just say that.
Yep.
You need a quarterback. You don't need to pay $12 million for a running back.
And Barkley's going to be good on the Eagles because the Eagles are a good team with a good offensive line.
Right.
The Giants don't have
player.
That. Right. He's a good player on a good team with a good offensive line. Right. So he's going to play well. He's going to score touchdowns because they're in position to score touchdowns. The Giants do not put themselves in position to score touchdowns. Right. So Barkley's going to have a big year. It's going to look bad on the Giants, but the Giants didn't do the wrong thing. They did the right thing.
And it's just a shame for the Giants that this happened while they were on Hard Knocks. So everyone can now pull up that John Mara clip of him saying, if he signs with Philadelphia, it's going to make me upset or whatever the hell he said.
Right. And now he looks even worse.
When he wandered into a Joe Shane's office, it looked like he had no idea what building he was in.
So let's finish with this. Who has a better season this year? The Cowboys or the Eagles? Who wins the division, the Cowboys or the Eagles?
I think the Eagles are going to win the division.
Why?
I think offensively they're just a more complete team, and I think Saquon really completes their offense. I just honestly, I'm a little concerned about Hurts.
But you just picked the Eagles to win the division. So
I just think they have more talent overall on both sides of the ball than the Cowboys. I think it's going to be close. I think they'll both win 11-plus games.
So it's going to be like last year. It's going to come down to the end?
Yeah, I think it is. I think they're both very good teams. I just think the Eagles overall have more talent on their roster. And Hurts can be not the same player, and they could win 12 games.
I think the Eagles probably will have a better offense. Cowboys are going to have a better defense. We'll see who.
Well, the Cowboys are one of the best defenses in the league.
Yeah, the Cowboys have a better defense. The Eagles have a better offense, probably by a little bit.
Who do you think is winning the division?
I think it's going to be the Cowboys.
Right.
I don't trust the Eagles. I just after what I saw at the end of last year, I think Barkley's going to be a huge help because
I agree.
He just adds another weapon. But I just don't. Hurts doesn't look like the same player.
You agree, right?
He's still good.
He looks off.
He's still good, but he's just not the player he was 2 years ago when he was in command completely.
He looks off.
I think if you look at both their teams, the Cowboys' defense is superior. I think Dak will be good enough, and they're going to play. They're so good at home because they love playing on that field. It's like a track meet for them. They have the best receiver maybe in the NFL. Obviously, the Eagles have a great receiver too, and they have multiple really good weapons. But I just think when it comes down to it, I think the Cowboys are going to edge them by a little bit, just like last year. I just think overall they have a better complete team, and I trust the way their chemistry is with the coaching staff, with Dak, with CD, with all those guys in the defense, and obviously Micah Parsons. I think they're more together than the Eagles are, and I think the Eagles will be a playoff team, but I just don't completely trust them yet. I got to see more from Sirianni and Hurts this year that they've put that relationship back together.
Yeah, I mean, something was definitely off with them last year, and it's amazing that no leaks ever came out to find out what that was. But I assume whatever it was, they fixed it to an extent because Sirianni would have been fired otherwise. So I'm interested to see if that was just they're playing in Brazil, time difference, opening night, a little sloppy field, if that was the situation, or if Hurts is just not back yet. I'm interested to see how they perform next week.
Yes.
Let me ask you this last question.
Yeah.
Outside of those two games, 3 games really, because we talked about the Eagles, what was your other best performance of the day?
Of just today?
Yeah.
I'm not counting the Saints because they played the Panthers, so I'm not doing that. By a player or a team?
Team. What team did you see today that you thought that was a nice performance?
I thought Tampa's performance was impressive, actually.
I agree.
I know they're playing the Commanders. I don't think Commanders are a great team. I think the Commanders are going to be, average at best. I think Daniels is good, but I think their defense is not great. They're not going to be a great team. But Tampa looked very good to me. I think that division is obviously up for grabs as usual. And they look impressive today. I thought Baker, they obviously lost Dave Canales and they changed their offensive coordinator, and everyone was like, oh, what are they going to look like now? They look maybe better than they ever did last year at any point. Mike Evans still looks like Mike Evans. Godwin looks like he's back to being Godwin from a couple of years ago. Now they put him back in the slot. He looks like back to being the weapon they had. Now they have a little more with Bucky Irving. They could give Rashad White. They could go back and forth. They have a little more depth there at the running back position. They obviously have a good O-line. I like what I saw from the Buccaneers today, so I was impressed with them. What about you?
Yeah, I agree. I think Baker looks like he's got his full confidence back. He looks like a good quarterback that can win you. That could get you to the
Yeah,
playoffs. He did last
maybe.
year, obviously.
Listen, we'll see. He's obviously going to prove it this year. Last year was maybe a fluke. Is this year going to be the year that he proves that it wasn't a fluke? What's your team?
Yeah, I mean, this is really the first time in his career that he's had consistency
So
coaching wise.
what team impressed you?
I mean, Tampa impressed me also. I mean, obviously you can't say
You got
the
to pick a
Saints.
different team.
The Saints didn't impress me because they were playing the Panthers.
Pick a different team.
Who did the
Sleeper, that app
Oh,
is
yeah.
completely screwed.
I gotta say for a team that lost,
Yeah.
Indianapolis impressed me. I thought Anthony Richardson looked good. They looked like they had good weapons. Obviously, they're playing Houston, who's a really good team.
I thought
they had a
Houston
chance to win
well.
that game too. And Indianapolis impressed me.
Okay, so I'll say this too to piggyback on that. I was really impressed by Houston, and obviously everyone thought Houston would be good this year, and that's not surprising at all. But what I think I saw from Houston, what I thought from the Texans today, it looks like Cooper Kupp is back. What I saw from the Texans today that was, I think, a sign of, hey, this team can not only get to the playoffs this year, but maybe contend for a Super Bowl this year, is two things. What did they need an upgrade in from last year? A little bit, their running game. Joe Mixon was a big pickup for them. Joe Mixon, even though, he's not, is he Barkley? No, but he's a really good running back that you could feed and you can give 30 touches to, and he's more dynamic than Singletary. And he ran for like 130 yards today. They moved the ball through the ground because the pass rush was on them. So I thought it was big that they got Mixon, and the second thing is they got Diggs involved right away.
Yep.
They didn't. I know they spread it around nicely. I was worried about who's going to get touches. You know what? They all got touches. Dell had a decent game. Diggs had only 6 for 31, but had 2 touchdowns, and Collins had the biggest game of the 3. But they spread it around to the 3 of them, and that was without them throwing the ball a ton. So wait till they have to throw the ball more when they play teams that don't have as good a pass rush. We have to throw the ball. I was very impressed with Houston, and in a tough stadium with a tough team on the road, because like you said, the Colts are a solid team.
I know.
So with a tough team on the road, you're playing the Colts, who are a good football team, and you pulled that game out. And I was very impressed with the Texans, and I think that's a good sign of things to come for them this season. So, anyway, all right,
Yeah, I agree.
that's it for today. I'm excited for this Sunday night game. Actually,
Yeah,
I'm excited. I think it's a good game. The Rams Lions. It's as good as a game. Didn't they play in the playoffs last year?
they did first round.
Yeah.